Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the new Begg Knives Production Astio, which is in the same caliber as the new Production Bodega and a few others. I'm going to link this entire line right down in the description so you guys can check it out if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to Blade HQ for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This is an authorized production version of the original custom Astio, right? The original Begg Astio and you know, the original Begg Bodega were U.S. customs and extremely expensive, even if you can find them now, right? Yeah, go have a look at Arizona Custom Knives. They're just ridiculous, right? Then there was the Riot Steelcraft series, which we're talking, instead of, you know, over 1,000 or thousands, we're talking of 300 to 400, maybe a little more, right? But then those, you know, are also gone. So now we have these, which are the most budget-friendly variants. I don't know who the OEM is exactly, but these are made in China. So these are the least expensive, but they are still very expensive. I went over in detail what I thought of this general line in the review of the Bodega here, so you can check that out if you want to. I'm not going to go into as much detail today about what I think about the line, but I am going to talk about this knife in particular and, you know, what I think about it. So let's go ahead and get a measurement here. I do actually have an Astio video from years ago, like an OG Astio, if you want to check that out. Very old video. Overall length is coming in at about 8 1/8. It's not quite 8 1/4. Blade length, I'm going to call it 3.5. Cutting edge, 3.45 or so. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. So you can see here, I'm going to still call it this a full-size knife. It's very close to the same overall size as the Rat 1. Definitely similar presence, way larger than the Rat 2. Let's go ahead and put it up against the Demco 80 20.5. How about up against the Benchmade Bug Out? There we go. And the Benchmade Group Chilean, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? And then I think we'll finish it off here with the Spyderco Para 3. Alrighty, how's the action on this guy? It's good. It's the same feeling as the Bodega. It's incredibly snappy. I mean, and when I say that, I mean, again, if you want the full emphasis, the action on these things is awesome. The D10 is tuned correctly. It just really feels like one OEM in particular. I just can't say for sure. It's not, you know, it's hard for me to even want to guess, right? But it feels like an extremely premium Chinese OEM did these. The D10s is awesome. The actual, you know, the bearings are great. They kind of come factory tight, but these will break in over time. And I feel like I've felt this exact same type of initial tightness and break-in before, which is why it feels so familiar, but it's very, very good, definitely. You've got plenty of access to the lock bar. These lock bars are a little bit aggressively textured, so doing it over and over and over again is going to irritate your thumb. That's about the worst of it. Outside of that, you're fine. The flipper tab, you can push button it. It definitely works better as a light switch on this guy. Once you deploy it, the blade is going to deploy. Can you access the little fuller thing? Not easily. You're going to have to dig at it a bit. Some people might be able to do it better than me, but not really, right? You knock yourself out if you end up buying one. But I can't really do it very well. Carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's about the same, but I think I should point out the scales are slightly contoured, which is really nice. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. This guy is a little closer to the size of the PM2, a little longer than the Para 3. As far as max height goes, it actually does, you know, between the flipper tab and the peak of this little harpoon notch here, it does get about as tall as the hump on the Para 3 and PM2. So you might notice it more than your average pocket knife, but not that much more. I mean, if you've been carrying around the PM2, this isn't going to feel that much different. What are we looking at for materials? We are looking at D2. Yeah, I know. I know, but for the price of the I get that. I'm going to say the same thing, right? I get it. But I mean, go ahead and leave the comment because it's great for the algorithm. But I get it. Everybody's saying it. I want to talk about what would make it better rather than complaining about the price that is on it and the materials that they used. Because believe me, I have the exact same complaint. G10 and steel for the frame lock. So that's what we're looking at there. Let's go ahead and weigh it here real quick. The weight on the Astio coming in at an unsurprising 4.83 ounces on the heavier side, but certainly nothing to take your pants off over. I mean, you're going to need your pants either way. I mean, not only to carry your knife, but just in general, like in life. Life generally requires pants. I wish that it didn't, but it does. So don't take your pants off. I mean, if you're at home and, you know, if you're in the privacy of your own home, I suppose, you know, but like out in public, like if you're at the library, for example, wear pants. Anyways, let's go ahead and do a hardware check. Let me get out my tools. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the description of in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use in this channel. Sorry, I got distracted looking for the T8 there. We have a T8 pivot. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 body screws. This is how it was in the original design, I believe. I think that they obviously had way too many screws in the original design, but they're just sort of staying, you know, they're staying with that original design. It's not like it's going to be a deal breaker. That's a lot of screws, right? And they're all T6, which is a bummer. But it's still fairly easy to take apart as long as you have a place to put your tools and a place to, you know, oh, I'm sorry, you have proper tools and a place to put your hardware. You should be okay. But yeah, it will be annoying taking all of these screws out of here. And also, you know, since we're talking about things that are held down with screws, the pocket clip can only be mounted for right-handed carry. So sorry, lefties. Bummer. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness here before we get into the meat and potatoes, as for some reason, I've just decided that that's what this section of the review is called. Blade stock thickness on this guy's coming in at 143. I'm going to guess 145 thousandths is probably the accurate measurement. So on the thicker side, alrighty. As is, you know, it's the same deal here as the Bodega. This, if it were priced where everybody would want, here's the thing. Let's take what this is made out of. G10, steel, and D2. All right, let's write those things down on paper. And then you slide that piece of paper across the table to your average knife guy. You say, put a price on that. What are they going to say? Sub $50, right? That's what everybody does. That's been imprinted in our head. That's what we do. We automatically associate materials into a certain price range. And, you know, for the most part, I would say that this generally does sort of lead people down the right paths. The problem is that there are variables that can change that. Are they all applied, you know, appropriately here? No, but factually there are variables that can change that. For example, making a rectangle of G10 and a rectangle shaped liner and then doing the same on the other side and then making a simple rectangle blade or triangle blade with a flat grind and doing the most simple finishes as possible, right? Then you're definitely going, the final, you know, result of that, the end of that equation is going to be an inexpensive knife. If you execute those materials in a different way, in a more complicated way, even if it is a machine at the end of the day doing the work and not a human being, it will cost more money, right? Again, yes, even if it is a machine. Somebody tried to tell me that the other day. Stole a machine doing the work. Stole a machine doing the work. Yeah, it is. But depending on what type of work and how long that work takes, let me tell you, that will still cost more money on the owner's end, the operator of the machine, the owner of the machine. Can't just pretend. Call it. It's like thinking like Minecraft rules, right? Just shove that iron in the oven and push the buttons, and it should spit out the thing that you want, right? Yeah, this is definitely made in a more complicated way, certainly. Does it cost that much more than the rectangle and the rectangle and the triangle? I don't know, right? I mean, these are still manufactured in China, but wow, they're definitely more complicated than your average budget knife, right? If this, you know, if this were a sub $50 knife, let's put it this way. Let's cast different light on it. If this knife costs less than $50, it would
absolutely, without argument, be the nicest sub $50 knife on earth. Period. I've never seen anything under $50. I've seen things that are nice, and I mean, like, yeah, it's like got the titanium clip, and it's got some, you know, it's nice. It's got the pivot collar, and that, you know, like my Huron does some cool stuff. Is it anywhere near as complicated? No, absolutely not. Right? The reason I'm getting all up in arms about this is because I can hear all of the different arguments, and there's some good ones to be had, right? I've had some logical people, you know, talk about this, but it's just, I get the same brain dead sort of response to this over and over and over again, and there's just, like, I can't be bothered with that. This is overpriced as it sits. $120 is too much for this. But simply, you know, shutting your brain off, right? And just sitting there with spaghetti in your pants and being like, that should cost less than $50 because G2 and G10, that's just really dumb. It's just dumb. No, it shouldn't cost $120, right? But I mean, the G10, the way that they've done this, it's not just a flat piece of G10. They've got it contoured. They've got it finished nicely. They've also milled a little bit of a pattern in here. And, you know, that's just the G10. The rest of the knife here, we definitely have the, you know, the OG sort of Begg frame lock thing, which, yes, it's made out of steel, but it's got a fuller milled into it. It's nicely polished, nicely chamfered, connects in a unique way, right? The blade, holy moly, I've never seen anything like this on a budget knife, right? People are going to make the same joke. I've seen it at the gas station. Nah, you haven't really, though. You haven't really. The compound grind, the fuller, down the flat, the little holes, right? The way that this is done, the way that this is finished, man, listen, it's same exact blade, but it's M390, right? Attach it to a titanium frame. What you have there at that point is you got a justifiable, you know, $250 knife. As far as like general competition goes, it's not finished or ground any different. It's like, it's absolutely in the same tier. It's just made out of D2, right? Now, I know people are going to take away different things from that, but my point is that we've got more work going into this than what people typically, you know, associate with a lower price tier, right? So I want to judge this accurately. I see more of, you know, $80, $75, $80 knife here. Still not 120, but instead of complaining about things being too expensive, it's much easier for me to say what would, you know, to ask what would make it a $120 knife. Well, truth be told, it's really just the steel, right? That's what it's going to come down to. Which is this unraveling, this whole foundation I've created for people associating materials with certain tiers, right? Which again, does generally lead people down the right path, but that's what's going to make it a little bit easier to digest for the consumer. As far as a tool, as far as it goes, you know, as a functional tool, yeah, the Astio is a great design. It's actually really, you know, pretty comfortable. The only uncomfortable areas are going to be this jimping in here, but really all of the edges are nicely knocked down. The harpoon notch is really nice. I think I would have liked some jimping up here. Even this area where you're pinched up against the flipper tab is really not all that pinchy, right? I mean, it's a really crazy over-the-top sort of tactical-looking functional tool. And it flips and deploys really well. It's very easy, you know, second nature to manipulate all of that. And it looks neat, right? The compound grind is nice. You get a little bit of a recurve here, which isn't going to be fun down the road after you've resharpened it a few times. It's going to start to look kind of poopy, especially this area right here, right? These sort of grinds, they're fine for EDC. They'll work. I mean, as you know, sort of cut, this area in here is going to draw material towards this belly after this angle, right? And, you know, it'll carve through things. It's not going to slice, you know, or process material as well as a really thin flat ground Spyderco or anything like that, but it's cool, right? You can cut cardboard with style. But yeah, it's neat. And I like the, you know, the compound grind and the fuller and everything like that. It just looks nice. It just says Begg Knives on one side. And it says, what do we got here? Is it a JVO design? I forgot about that. Boy, it's been a long time. The details you should be able to find on the listing, the Blade HQ listing. Yeah, really, You know, it's like I said in the other video, they should have just gone with 14C28N or 154CM. Now, you know, those aren't, we don't generally see 14C28N in the $120 plus territory. We see 154CM there all the time. In fact, you see 154CM on custom knives, right? It's because it's easy to mirror polish and still, you know, has great performance and, you know, has fine grain structure even for being an ingot steel. 14C28N is kind of king of the budget world, and it kind of hovers there. If you're gonna have kind of a weirdy-beardy kind of thing, and it's kind of, you know, sitting on both sides of the fence, that $100 line is real weird because people have really strong feelings about what's appropriate under 100 and over 100, right? 14C28N is one of the only things that can help people digest things like this, right? So I think that would have been a better choice. I think one of the main purposes for, you know, doing this is, number one, kind of breathing life back into these designs, which are really good. I mean, they're famous. This isn't nearly as famous as the Bodega, but these were definitely like super crazy preferable knives, and that people were really wanting them. And then, you know, they get like the clone companies got a hold of them, and you know, that whole thing, that always sucks. So I honestly, I think it's way better to overpay for something that is an authorized, you know, like a collab, like production variant. I think it's way better to overpay than to go spend less money and buy a clone, right? And again, I know that people have super strong feelings about this, right? The 17 people on Reddit who are just so frustrated. Gosh darn that Metal Complex. He doesn't like clones. Well, I say 17. I think it was like a couple hundred people, which is, oh, it's just not enough to get me to change my mind. Yeah. I spit on you. I spit on you and your thoughts. Sorry. I just don't care. Yeah, I think clones are gross. I think people who are like, oh, I'm getting such a great deal. No, spend money on, you know, you have too many choices. It's just a really dumb excuse. It's a terrible excuse. You know, in this case, you can spend a little bit more and, you know, figure out if you really want the real thing and still have, you know, a huge chunk of that going to the original designer. Or don't buy it at all and buy an original design from one of the other 10 billion companies that we have out there, right? But a direct ripoff, paying for that, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's gross, right? But, you know, go make another Reddit thing and you know, really get all sauced up over there. That'll show me. Some of those conversations are truly a joy to read. They really thought they were doing something. But anyways, yeah, I think that's the main purpose. Is to, you know, kind of mitigate that and breathe life back into these designs, which is fine. They just chose the wrong price, right? The rest of this is very much the same. I mean, we have just like a less premium version of the clip, the original Astio clip, and it's got the ball bearing there. And then we have the internal stop pin, which is nice. No blade play, up, down, left to right. I mean, the fit and finish and the overall execution of these is just wonderful. It really is above and beyond. It really is a step above what I expect from the $50 tier that people think that these should be sitting in. Everything is a step up. This is not a sub $50 knife, period. But it's also not a $120 knife. It just needs a little bit more sauce. I think a different blade steel would have been a step in the right direction. Honestly, this is my honest thoughts. Slap 14C28N or 154CM on this and charge $100, and I think they would have been way more on target. And, you know, people might argue, I don't know if they have the room for that. You know, it's really kind of, I think they do. I think that there's still, you know, plenty of room there to make money off of these, and I think they would have been, you know, much more enticing. It just would have been easier to digest, as I've said 3 times now. So I don't know. D2 is, we know that it's an insanely inexpensive steel. We know that the price of D2 has come down no matter who you are. If you're like the people who make it, you're the people who are buying it from the people who make it so that you can turn it into a knife, right? Or you're the consumer. We know that the price has come down. It's not like anybody's confused about this, right? D2 is not It's just nowhere near as expensive as it used to be, even considering inflation. So we don't want to see it on a knife that costs anywhere near $100, no matter how complex and, you know, impressive the design is. These are very, very impressive knives. And if you don't care about the steel, right, and that price tag is something that you can afford, you're going to be really happy with this, right? But there's just way too much competition to judge. You got to be a serious Begg Knives fan to really want to do this. You have to be the type of person who's always lusted over some of the, you know, the OG customs and then been like, man, that'd be great, but I don't have that kind of money, or I can't justify that kind of money on a knife purchase, right? This is your answer. It's the same thing as the Bodega. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. Really cool knife, really cool line. It just needs they need some tweaking, right? I hope that they maybe come back to this, and it would be really awesome to see at least, I mean, there's no way they're coming down in price. I know people like to think if you kick and scream and cry and boycott that you're going to get them to come down in price. No, you're not going to. That's not going to happen. That's ridiculous. You're going to waste your time, and then you're going to forget about it because you didn't care that much in the first place, and maybe you just had a bad day, right? You put 50 cents in the pop machine and it didn't give you a pop. Whatever, deal with it, right? That's not going to happen. What we can do is suggest different materials, a little bit different this, a little bit different that. If you want this much money, change it. Make it be this, right? That's what works, right? In my experience. Or they just don't come back to it, or maybe they don't change it at all, right? But kicking and screaming for them to bring the price down is just not gonna do anything. Waste of time. But I will say, still, it's too much money, right? We gotta do something different here if we're gonna charge this much for it. He's a little bit irritable today. No, I want to be real about these, right? I want to be real and you know, be fair with the design, but at the same time, call out the people who are just saying the same dumb stuff over and over again, because it's not helpful. It doesn't do anything, right? Alrighty. I said it was going to be shorter. I think it's actually longer than the Bodega review. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.